Detective J. Phillips walks down the hallway of THE Airport and sees two men walk into the bathroom with symbols on their shirts. The symbols say cleanup crew with a big red drop of blood on their right side where the sleeves of each shirt above that has big symbols T, B, O, C. Detective J. Phillips walks towards his vehicle in the parking lot and waits for the two men to finish cleaning the body from THE Airport bathroom. Detective J. Phillips' phone rings and he answers. "IT Detective Phillips, how can I help you?" The voice on the other end is the voice of his fiancée Dr. Samantha Lee at the medical clinic's lab. "Detective, it's Dr. Samantha Lee. I have been investigating the COVID-19 virus and I have evidence you need, but you have 18 hours to get the antidote or billions will die." Detective tells Dr. Samantha to meet him at the old warehouse on 5th Street and Main Ave, and he just followed the two men in uniforms to their hideout. Detective starts loading his gun with bullets and he also has a detonator as well in his duffel bag. Interior warehouse is dark and gloomy and Detective watches the two men take a body into another room and you smell the stench of something burning. Meanwhile, Dr. Lee walks toward Detective J. Phillips and hands him a folder full of documents. Dr. Lee starts to whisper in Detective J. Phillips' ear. "This is the proof. The Blood Organization Corporation has been experimenting with the COVID-19 virus, creating a global pandemic to profit from the antidote." Detective J. Phillips, determined to this document to the authorities, hears the men opening the door of the room with the smell of burning flesh. The two men press an alarm button and the sirens and bells and red lights start flashing, giving a signal for the other henchmen to come through the doors of the warehouse. Over a dozen men try to fight and knock Detective to the floor, but he fires all of his bullets, hitting at 4 to 5 henchmen. He says to Dr. Lee, "Quick, run and get out of here. I will try to hold them off so you can escape." Detective throws his gun at another henchman and all of a sudden the warehouse is raided by the Blood Organization Corporation goons. Detective J. Phillips detonates the bombs in the warehouse and half of the building collapses and he jumps out the window into the water below and goes under the water and begins to swim. Meanwhile, 3 more henchmen grab Dr. Lee and tie her up with rope and she is dragged away with the cure of the virus in her pocket. Detective J. Phillips swims for his life in the water and swims away from his attackers, narrowly escaping. The 3 henchmen put Dr. Lee into a van and drive off to the Blood Organization headquarters to speak to their leader. Detective J. Phillips goes into his vehicle and follows the van to the Blood Organization headquarters near a medical clinic. Detective J. Phillips parks behind the medical clinic and sneaks through the back door. He races against time, searching for Dr. Lee in all the rooms and the cure of the deadly virus. Detective bursts into the emergency room desperate and grabs a nurse on a computer. Detective J. Phillips says to the nurse, "I need to find Dr. Lee. She has the cure for the COVID-19 virus." Nurse, confused, says, "I haven't seen her," but she looks at the computer monitor and sees the 3 henchmen take Dr. Lee to the headquarters next to the medical clinic. The nurse points to the computer and shows Detective J. Phillips the monitor. She says, "Those goons took her to their headquarters next door. Try to save. She is my best friend." Detective turns around and says, "Do not worry, I will save her and bring her back alive as well as the COVID-19 cure. Save the other billions of people WHO need before they die." Detective runs out of the medical clinic and runs across the street and runs around to find an open door or a window which he can get inside. Interior of the Blood Organization's Corporation headquarters. Detective J. Phillips infiltrates the high-security building, avoiding guards and cameras. He finally reaches Dr. Lee's lab and opens the door and walks toward the lab table. Dr. Lee is weak and sitting on a chair holding her body where it hurts where the men dragged and hit her. Dr. Lee says, "I was hiding the cure and they took the antidote from my pocket and slapped on the face and was going to get shot, but one of the thugs ran out of bullets." Detective J. Phillips said, "Do not worry, I will get it back to save those lives I promised." Detective searches the whole entire lab, discovering a hidden safe. Cracking the code, he opens it, revealing a glowing liquid. Detective J. Phillips says out loud to himself, "This is it. The cure." But just then, the Blood Organization Corporation's leader appears, snatching the vial from Detective J. Phillips' hands. Leader, sneering, says, "You are too late, Detective. The COVID-19 virus is spreading worldwide and you will never stop it in time. And with this cure, we will control the fate of humanity." All of a sudden the leader runs to the elevator and falls to the floor. Detective J. Phillips runs towards and the leader hits him with a metal object and Detective falls to the floor. The leader drops the metal object to the floor and runs up the stairway to the roof. The lead tells his henchmen to kill Detective J. Phillips and meet him on the roof of the building. The henchmen start running towards Detective J. Phillips, but Detective picks up the metal object and starts beating up the henchmen one at a time. He says, and he hits each one of them one at a time. "You like hitting women, take this and take that and this." 3 swipes knocked out all the henchmen. Detective runs towards the steps and chases the leader up the stairs onto the roof. Detective J. Phillips corners the leader, vial in hand, as the countdown to global pandemic reaches 1 hour. Detective J. Phillips says, "You are not going to get away with this." Leader smirking, "Oh, but we already have. Our henchmen are spreading the virus worldwide." Detective J. Phillips reveals a hidden device, hacked into the Blood Organization Corporation's computer system. Detective J. Phillips smiles and says, "Not if I can broadcast the cure to every corner of the globe." Leader says, horrified, "You cannot do this to US." Detective J. Phillips activates the device, transmitting the cure to every hospital, lab and computer connected to the Blood Organization Corporation's network. Detective J. Phillips faces off against the leader, a towering figure with a cold, calculating gaze. The leader says, "You are too late, Detective. The virus is already spreading and you cannot stop all of them. Nothing can stop me now, not even you, Detective." Detective J. Phillips says, "I will not let that happen." The two engage in fierce hand-to-hand combat, crashing through objects on the roof, shattering glass. Detective J. Phillips' determination and rage fuel his strength, but the leader's sheer power and cunning keep him on the defensive. Leader says, "You are no match for me." Detective J. Phillips says, "I will show you what a real match looks like." Detective J. Phillips swings at the leader jaw and misses wildly, and the leader punches Detective J. Phillips in the jaw and sending him to the floor, but Detective J. Phillips gets back up. The leader walks over to Detective J. Phillips and picks him up and tries to throw him off the building with a lot of rage, but Detective J. reverses the move, sending the leader flying over the edge of the building. The leader screams, "You killed my son," as he plummets 80 stories down, his body a mere speck against the city skyline. The leader's body hits the pavement with a sickening thud, a shockwave through the crowd gathered below. Detective J. Phillips turns away, grimacing, as the sound of sirens fills the air. Jay walks away, victorious, the vial of cure clutched tightly in his hand. He looks out over the city, knowing he saved countless lives. Detective J. Phillips walks towards the elevator and the door opens. He walks in and the door closes and he pushes the button lobby and waits, listening to elevator music in the background. All of a sudden the door opens and he walks out of the elevator and walks to the table near the exit and looks down and sees a card with his name on it. Detective J. Phillips picks up the card and reads the card, which displays "Happy Anniversary," and then closes his eyes and smiles.